by the military industrial.
The interest in the Seth Rich murder is back since Rod Wheeler's flip-flopping.
But you have sources at the FBI saying that there is information
For
that
sure.
could link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's confirmed.
I don't know for sure. I don't know, as a matter of fact, if the emails went out to the WikiLeaks or anybody else, but it sure appears that way.
Kim.com teasing evidence of Seth Rich's ties to WikiLeaks, and a confirmed fake FBI file that circulated around the internet. These stories are littered in falsehoods and speculation that have helped the corporate media label anyone who questions Seth Rich's murder as a conspiracy theorist, despite their many valid concerns. But hasn't the majority of the corporate media been circulating a conspiracy theory of their own?
The growing evidence of the Trump-Russia connection threatens to consume the opening months of Donald Trump's presidency.
We did not include any evidence in our report that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians.
For anyone who doesn't know who Seth Rich is, let me give you a brief summary. Seth Rich was a former DNC staffer who was murdered and shot twice in the back at 4 in the morning walking home from a bar. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The police immediately determined it was a botched robbery. He still had his watch, credit cards, wallet, and cell phone. Many were left confused with that quick determination, considering there's no clear sign of a robbery, except reported bruising and the band of his wristwatch being torn, but not broken. It's kinda difficult to understand what torn but not broken means. According to the local Fox affiliate in DC, the Bloomingdale neighborhood where Seth Rich was shot is known to be very safe. However, local news reports show that there was an increase in robberies of about 50 to 80% in the last 2 months leading up to the murder. Many of those robberies were at gunpoint. 2100 Flagler Place was the address where Seth was murdered. If you go on the DC crime map and search a 1,500-foot radius around the crime scene, you can see there was in fact an increase in armed robberies compared to the prior year. It went up from 9 to 24. But Seth has been the only homicide since 2008. So, a botched robbery could very well have taken place. He reportedly was drunk and may have tried to fight his assailant. Although after 10 months since the murder, the DC police have refused to answer any questions about the case, claiming it would interfere with their investigation. There were many street cameras in the surrounding areas of the murder, and according to a public incident report, the officers at the time were wearing body cameras. None of the footage has been released to the public, and many feel like they should release the footage since the DC police regularly upload surveillance footage of persons of interest. The DC police assert it was just a botched robbery, but they still haven't shown to have any leads or even name a single suspect. As a result, the Daily Caller reports an independent group is suing the DC police, asserting that the Metropolitan Police Department has mismanaged the murder investigation and hasn't produced any information about the case since October of last year. Jack Berkman, who held a press conference with the family in November, was the one that filed that lawsuit. Strangely, the family cut ties with Berkman and has relied on Brad Bauman as their family spokesman. According to a press release found on Political's website, Brad Bauman works for the Pastorum Group, which is, quote, a full-service communications and political strategy firm specializing in crisis operations. The co-founder of the Pastorum Group is Josh Cohen, who worked for the DNC. They also have partnered with Tory Brown, who had previously worked with David Brock's Media Matters. Many find it strange that the family would hire this spokesman that specializes in crisis management from a firm that is so deeply embedded with the DNC. The Pastorum Group is so close to the DNC that even Brad Bauman himself went on Fox News and conducted crisis management to defend Donna Brazile when she passed along questions to Hillary before a debate.
Let's say before the third presidential debate that Chris Wallace moderated that he passed questions along to Trump. How would you respond, Brad? Just curious.
Well, the first thing I would probably do is I would ask myself, well, where exactly are we getting this information? And
Right.
we're getting this information, again, from a state-sponsored attack on private emails.
Yeah.
And come on, no, seriously. And then we learned today that Trump may have been cooperating and
Again,
coordinating with the
listen,
Russian
you're the master of
government
deflection,
on a
Brad.
private
I
email
give you
server.
credit for that,
But where this story took a dramatic turn was when WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange heavily implied that the source of the DNC email leaks was 27-year-old Seth Rich. Take a look.
There's a 27-year-old works for the DNC who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
no, there's no finding. So
What are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
but why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
WikiLeaks has also offered a $20,000 reward to anyone who can offer information leading to an arrest in his murder. Strangely, the DNC hasn't done the same. WikiLeaks has done everything they can to signal that Seth Rich was their leaker, and the family spokesman, whose firm is deeply embedded with the DNC, has done everything to disprove WikiLeaks and pleading for everyone to ignore this conspiracy theory. The local Fox affiliate in DC even quoted Baumann saying that even if purported emails were to surface, it would not necessarily mean Rich had helped WikiLeaks. So essentially, Baumann wants to disprove any information that comes out ahead of time. It's almost like he doesn't really care about who actually killed Seth Rich. You would think that contacts with WikiLeaks would be a significant piece of information, something that would help the investigation. But it really seems like Baumann has political motives here. Baumann has also tried to imply Seth Rich has no background in IT.
His job was not in any way, shape, or form related to IT.
While the Daily Caller reported that he was actually the DNC's voter expansion data director and worked on a computer application to help voters locate polling stations. Given WikiLeaks' flawless track record of never publishing fake documents, Assange's statement held serious weight and added a new element in the investigation of Seth Rich's murder, which became highly politicized for both the left and the right. And that's for good reason. Proving Seth Rich was the DNC email leaker would dismantle the left's conspiracy theory that the Russians were the ones that hacked the DNC to influence the US election. After all, there has been no evidence presented that the Russians even hacked the DNC emails. Just the other day, Hillary was still talking about Russian hacking and influence in the election.
The Russians ran an extensive information war campaign against my campaign to influence voters in the election. The Russians, let's say WikiLeaks, same thing, dumped the John Podesta emails. Read the declassified report by the intelligence community that came out in early January.
She talked about the intelligence reports that corroborate these allegations. Let's take a quick look at the intelligence reports that Hillary and the media have used to base their theory. The joint analysis report between the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, released on December 29, 2016, begins with a disclaimer that says, quote, "This report is provided as is for informational purposes only. The Department of Homeland Security does not provide any warranties of any kind regarding any information contained within." So they don't even stand by the conclusion of their own report, and if you read the report, you'll see they blame two Russian hacking groups, APT-28 and APT-29, without ever providing any evidence. The FBI relied on an analysis from CrowdStrike, a private security firm contracted by the DNC. CBS reported that in a hearing with the Senate Intelligence Committee, Comey said there were multiple requests at different levels for access to the Democratic servers. The DNC denied the FBI access and hired CrowdStrike to look into their servers instead. Many found this revelation very suspicious. If you were actually a victim of cybercrime from a foreign agent, wouldn't you want the FBI to carry out a proper investigation instead of a private firm? In the joint analysis report, the FBI only provided a theoretical analysis of what a Russian cyber attack would look like based off of cyber attack these groups have committed in the past. And they don't even care to tell you where these groups specifically targeted. The report says, in the course of that campaign, APT-29 successfully compromised a US political party. Throughout the entire report, They only make vague references of who was affected by these attacks and never specifically state it was the DNC. The rest of the report only shows mitigation strategies to defend against these kind of cyber attacks. If you care to read the whole document for yourself, a link will be provided in the description. And the worst part here is that we don't even know if APT-28 and APT-29 are even Russian state actors like CrowdStrike implies. The Intercept reported that CrowdStrike co-founder Dmitry Alperovich describes APT-28 as a Russian-based threat actor, whose modus operandi closely mirrors the strategic interests of the Russian government, and may indicate affiliation with Russia's main intelligence department, or GRU. And a different security firm, SecureWorks, issued a report blaming Russia with moderate confidence. So all of this is pretty much just an educated guess. We don't even know if APT-28 and APT-29 are even Russian state actors. A week later, on January 6th, the intelligence community released a report called the Intelligence Community Assessment, detailing the influence the Russian government had on the election. But it also contained a similar disclaimer in their appendix saying, quote, "Judgments are not intended to imply that we have proof that shows something to be fact. Assessments are based on collected information, which is often incomplete or fragmentary, as well as logic, argumentation, and precedents." Now, it's also important to keep in mind that intelligence agencies usually use these disclaimers, but that only supports the fact that their findings shouldn't be deemed as definitive evidence like the corporate media is claiming, and if you actually go through the report, they offer absolutely no evidence except conjecture. Even in their sourcing, you can see they say, "Many of the key judgments in this assessment rely on a body of reporting from multiple sources that are consistent with our understanding of Russian behavior." So they even admit they don't have any direct evidence. They could easily attribute Russian behavior to anything. Their findings are based on extremely arbitrary circumstantial evidence that comes off as very tedious, like saying, Moscow's influence campaign followed a Russian messaging strategy that blends covert intelligence operations such as cyber activity with overt efforts by the Russian government agencies, state-funded media, third-party intermediaries, and paid social media users or trolls. They don't even show any data proving the impact of influence the Russians had in their alleged state-sponsored media campaign that favored Trump. Reading this document almost feels like you're reading a press release from Clinton's crisis management team. Like when they say, the consistent goals of which were to undermine public faith in the US democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. Contrary to the joint analysis by the FBI and DHS, this report has nothing to do with the hacking. It only has to do with the Russians favoring Trump, which is pretty petty. Their preferences shouldn't even be a discussion, let alone a whole entire intelligence report funded by taxpayer money. Even if the Russians were the hackers, then it wouldn't make much of a difference. One of the main functions of intelligence agencies is to hack each other and gather intelligence.
Russian spies said to hack Clinton's bid.
Said to have. That's not news. That's an allegation. James Clapper. I don't know who hacked. Everybody hacks everybody. I mean, we hacked into Chancellor Merkel's cell phone. We learned that from Snowden. The Israelis hacked. The Americans hacked. The Chinese hacked. Everybody hacked.
Governments hack each other all the time and try to influence elections for their own gain. Like when WikiLeaks revealed that the CIA carried out espionage orders to infiltrate all major political parties in France during the 2012 election. Or how about when Time magazine bragged about Americans influencing the 1996 Russian election to help Yeltsin win? So the media uses all of this as the base of their claims to accuse Trump of colluding with the Russian government to win the presidency. And to support those claims, they cite leaked communications between members in the Trump administration with the Russian ambassador to the United States. Some would say that is pretty weak circumstantial evidence. So the news media is peddling a conspiracy theory of their own, while calling anyone who believes WikiLeaks a conspiracy theorist. The term conspiracy theory has become a simple solution to shut down any dissenting opinion that doesn't support the official mainstream narrative.
Don't give me the conspiracy bullshit. Come on, you're a more intelligent man than that. Well, come on. I mean, come on. There has never been a conspiracy in this country.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
the terms conspiracy theorist or conspiracy theory are well-known buzz terms used as pejoratives to discredit dissenting opinion. One of the earliest examples was a 1967 CIA dispatch, where the CIA developed the term conspiracy theory as a weaponized term to discredit dissent. The 1967 CIA dispatch was declassified in response to a New York Times FOIA request in 1976. The disclosure of this document came at a time where the public was becoming aware of the CIA's Operation Mockingbird campaign that embedded itself in the news media, state organizations, and magazine publications in order to control mass perception. In other words, it was a large-scale propaganda campaign that started in the 50s, and the last trace of the operation appeared in a 1973 CIA document titled The Family Jewels. Carl Bernstein exposed the scope of the CIA operation in his 1977 article titled The CIA and the Media, where he revealed that over 400 American journalists secretly carried out assignments for the Central Intelligence Agency, according to documents on file at CIA headquarters. So the press and US intelligence has a tight-knit past that still may be present today. The aim of the 1967 CIA dispatch was to provide material countering and discrediting claims of the conspiracy theorists. They drafted these plans in response to the concerns people had with the JFK assassination. The plans to employ propaganda assets to discredit conspiracy theories actually mirror a CNN report that was published last week called "This is Why the Seth Rich Conspiracy Won't Disappear." The CIA dispatch recommended journalists to dismiss conspiracy theories by pointing out that conspiracy theorists are wedded to theories adopted before the evidence was in.
For almost a year now, various conservatives have been latching onto a conspiracy theory surrounding the murder of a young DNC staffer. The problem? It's never been supported by any evidence.
Politically interested.
For them, Seth Rich's murder disproves the entire narrative surrounding Trump and Russia.
Hasty and inaccurate in the research.
In fact, like so many conspiracy theories, when you lay it all out, it's incoherent. It doesn't really make sense.
And infatuated with their own theories.
The Seth Rich conspiracy theory has all the elements of what's driven Trump's supporters. The mainstream media is lying and covering up the real story? Check. Trump's opponents are evil and will stop at nothing to take him down? Check. And finally, this Russia stuff. It's all bogus. Fake news. Check.
CNN and the rest of the media is constantly telling you that the Seth Rich conspiracy theory is a lie, when no one even knows anything about his murder, and yet is still pushing a Russian conspiracy theory of their own.
You should be concerned if there was collusion, and that's what
I don't see any evidence of collusion. Do you?
No. That's
okay.
What,
so that should end your reporting right there.
We're
you
at
should
the
put an
beginning
exclamation point after you know.
Understood, but we're at the beginning of the investigation. So what?
You're
Congress,
7 months into the investigation.
Not exactly.
You're 7
Robert Mueller
months.
has just taken over. Robert Mueller has
it's
just
a new
taken
investigation.
Over. Well, no. I mean, look, Governor, we appreciate your perspective that there's nothing to see here, and that the investigation is, I don't know, silly?
Politically motivated by folks trying to rationalize a horribly run Democratic presidential campaign.
Governor John Sununu, thank you very much. Always great to get your perspective.
So is CNN wedded to theories adopted before evidence is in?
Check.
Politically interested?
Check.
Hasty and inaccurate in their research?
Check.
And infatuated with their own theories?
Check.
In reality, using the term conspiracy theory is intellectually lazy and stifles critical thinking. Opinions from conspiracy theorists should be met with strong counterarguments instead of ad hominems like labeling them a conspiracy theorist and completely ignoring their argument. When it comes to these two competing theories between the Russian collusion narrative and the Seth Rich murder, there's no clear evidence yet to make a determination, and there may never be. It all falls on whom you believe, the intelligence agencies, who don't have the best track record, or Julian Assange, who's done a pretty good job maintaining his credibility over the past 7 years. So who do you believe? The intelligence agencies? Or Julian Assange? Or do you guys not believe any of this? I also want to know if you guys felt that weaponized term conspiracy theory has lost its effectiveness in shutting down unpopular speech. Let me know in the comments below. This channel isn't a conspiracy theory channel. While I do cover what many consider to be conspiracy theory, CounterSpin simply goes beyond the mainstream and shows information that contradicts or challenges the official narrative and allows you to come to your own conclusions. The idea of this channel is to promote critical thinking and step away from biases in the mainstream message that is funded by special interests. If you don't agree with any of the information presented, that's okay. We want to hear from you. I'm only trying to start a conversation and talk about information and interesting topics not covered in the mainstream media and culture. Any disagreement you may have only strengthens that conversation. If that's something you want to be a part of, then please subscribe for more videos that go beyond the mainstream. I also wanted to thank everyone that supported part 1 of the Burnt Pizza documentary. Child sex trafficking is an enormous issue that doesn't get the attention it deserves. I want to thank you guys for sharing it and spreading awareness, and hopefully we can make a change. With that said, part 2 of Burnt Pizza is coming up very soon, so stay tuned for more videos that go beyond the mainstream, and take care.